soon as the woman boarded the plane, she noticed something eerie. Long-haul flights are usually fully booked, but at that moment, only she and her daughter were boarding. Moreover, her daughter had become silent since getting on the plane. A sense of inexplicable unease welled up inside her. Fortunately, moments later, passengers gradually boarded the plane, and Mary didn't notice anything unusual. It was a 10-hour long-haul flight, and soon after takeoff, people fell fast asleep. Mary noticed 2 empty rows of seats in the rear cabin and took her daughter there to lie down. From that point on, strange things started to happen. When she woke up from a nap, she discovered her daughter was missing from her side. At this point, Mary hadn't yet realized the gravity of the problem, assuming her daughter had run off to play somewhere else. It was only when she had searched all the passenger cabins on the plane without finding her daughter that Mary finally panicked. After a flight attendant learned about her situation, they made an announcement asking all passengers to help look for a 6-year-old blonde girl. Strangely, a long time passed without any news, and even the passenger in front of Mary said they hadn't noticed she was traveling with a daughter. Mary quickly returned to her seat to check. Her daughter's teddy bear, which she always carried with her, was right there, proving her memory wasn't wrong. She urgently requested the crew to conduct a thorough search of the entire plane, but the staff was reluctant to do so, as no one could leave the enclosed cabin at an altitude of 30,000 feet. They said they would report the matter to the captain. However, even after 10 minutes had passed, the staff hadn't done any searching. Suddenly, Mary noticed 2 flight attendants speaking in hushed, panicked tones. She hurried over to inquire if something had happened to her daughter. The attendant who had just hung up the phone said her daughter wasn't on the plane at all. The attendant had contacted the ground staff, and they hadn't found any boarding record for her daughter. The passenger list didn't include her daughter's name either. Mary thought it was absurd and took out her boarding pass to prove it, but the pocket only contained her own pass. Mary ran to open the overhead bin and found her daughter's backpack was also missing, but at this height, her daughter couldn't possibly reach it, so someone must have taken it. Mary became even more anxious and then rushed towards the cockpit without regard for anything else, but just as she was frantically banging on the cockpit door, she was suddenly restrained by the air marshal behind her. Her behavior had seriously affected the other passengers. However, the commotion still alerted the captain, who merely asked Mary if she was lucid before boarding. Obviously, he thought it was all Mary's hallucination, and Mary replied without much confidence that she was taking some anti-anxiety medication. She then explained that her husband had fallen to his death from a building 6 days ago, and she had started taking sedatives after that. This flight was to bring her husband's remains back to his hometown for burial, and his coffin was in the plane's cargo hold. She became agitated, insisting she was certain her daughter had boarded the plane with her and that she had even been holding her daughter's hand before falling asleep. This was definitely not a hallucination. Despite everyone saying they hadn't seen the girl, although everyone claimed they hadn't seen the girl, the captain still decided to notify all passengers to return to their seats so they could check every place a small child could hide. This time, they searched every corner of the cabin, including the overhead bins and restrooms. They even thoroughly inspected the cargo hold and equipment bay but still couldn't find any trace of her daughter. Mary checked under each row of seats, and as she passed by a row of passengers, she suddenly realized the bearded man looked familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had seen him before. Seeing that her daughter was still nowhere to be found, Mary became agitated again. She demanded to personally inspect the cargo hold and equipment bay. The captain had lost patience but still suppressed his anger and explained that passengers were not allowed to enter those 2 areas. Carson said he could accompany her to check in his capacity as an air marshal but was still refused by the captain. At this